I'm Sam Baer, car guy in chief at Class Winners Collector Vehicles. And I'm asking you, when you think of early 90s pony and muscle cars, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Like 5-liter Mustangs and small block Chevy powered Camaros? Well, today, for the Seat of the Pants video, we're driving something that's neither of those. It's a 1991 Firebird convertible from Pontiac. And the dirty little secret? It's a V6. Hey, before we forget, why don't you go and hit that blue Class Winners icon so you can subscribe. And also, don't forget to like and comment. This is a very special and very rare car. This 1991 Pontiac Firebird convertible represents the limited edition release of Pontiac's first Firebird convertible since 1969. So rare were these cars that this very specific car, when it was new, was featured as a parade car in Seattle's Seafair Torchlight Parade. So although it wasn't until the second to last year of the third generation F-bodies that the Firebird got a convertible, actually its platform mate, the Camaro, had been in convertible form since 1987. And just like the Camaro, Pontiac decided to send the Firebird out to convertible specialist ASC in Michigan to do the conversions, but they were factory authorized. So you ordered it from a dealer from the factory, and the factory delivered you a convertible. It just took one extra step. Convertible top operation was really simple in this car. You see, you just hit a little button here, brought up the rear boot, bring that up, bring this down, lock it in, and then we have two latches underneath here, two header rail latches, and that's it. Now, there is a plastic rear window, and before you start saying that's pretty cheap, take into consideration that in this era, you could get a $100,000 Porsche or Mercedes or, you know, an expensive BMW and have a plastic rear window, and it's convertible. If you wanted a glass rear window, you could always get a Chrysler LeBaron convertible. Just saying. Now, whereas in 1991, they made 20,000 Mustang convertibles, and they made over 8,500 Camaro convertibles, well, they basically made about 1,600 Firebird convertibles. And among those, there were just under 1,000 of these base Firebirds that were available with either a 3.1 liter V6 or the 5-liter low output V8. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is one of the V6 cars, but I know you're saying a V6 pony or muscle car, that's like a plastic Christmas tree. There's something just sick and wrong about it. But let me try to change your mind. This 3.1 liter V6 was shared across GM products, and it's a heck of a great engine. It's bulletproof, and it produces 140 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60? Uphill, but we're at 60 now. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that the base V8 of the F-bodies in this generation, it was no monster. it was basically 170 horsepower and 255 pound-feet. It maybe took off about a second and a half off your 0 to 60. And even those IROC Camaros and the Trans Ams, well, try racing a 10-year-old Toyota Avalon and see what happens. They're going to get their doors blown off. Our perception of horsepower and torque, it's very different now than it was in the 90s. So this provides a great balance between the ability to get on an on-ramp on the freeway and then also cruise at 65, 70, 75 miles an hour and get over 20 miles to the gallon. Sending the power to the rear wheels, it's the tried and true GM 4-speed automatic. You could get a 5-speed, but I think the automatic really harnesses the power well, and it just gives a great cruising ability. Handling is really good in the F-bodies. In fact, they were the basis for some really great production stock race cars in the 1980s and 1990s. In the convertible form, it's a little bit heavier. It's about almost 3,600 pounds, but still, the independent front and solid rear axle work really well to keep the car planted with minimal body roll. Come into a tight corner and it works really well. In fact, it's just as good in the twisties as it is on the highway. And this is a great highway car. Brakes, well, discs up front, drum in the rear on this Firebird, and they rein it in just fine. Now, ABS wasn't available until the 4th generation, appearing in 1993. In the inside, it's a comfortable place to be. For seating, we have these comfortable gray cloth bucket seats, and in the rear, there's room for 2. Well, as long as they don't have much legs. But actually, they even have shoulder harnesses back there, which is pretty rare for 1991. You'll very much recognize the Pontiac stylized gauges and lots of hard plastic as well. It's the early 1990s, and that's par for the course. We've got a speedo attack, we've got oil pressure and temperature, fuel gauge, we've got great HVAC with AC, power windows. Luggage capacity, well, there is actually a fairly good sized trunk by convertible standards back there. It's very deep, and it's got width, but not much length. Now, in terms of NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness, again, we're in a 90s car, so not only do we have more rattles than a daycare, but let's just say with the typical convertible platform, with a cowl shake, this thing is basically like a hula dancer on methamphetamines. It's just going like this. But convertibles really didn't get good chassis rigidity until about 1998 with the Corvette C5 convertibles. So again, par for the course. Pontiac has never been a shrinking violet in terms of styling. On this 1991 Firebird, it received the year's new 2-inch longer nose to differentiate it from the Camaro. Plus, it has more tacked on body parts than the Adult Entertainment Awards show in Vegas. I mean, there's so much tacked on aero that there's pretty much plastic everywhere. Now, you either like it or you don't. I think it looks kind of cool, but it does trap more dirt than, well, a suit made out of mousetrap glue. One styling thing you will notice about this car, which is non-standard, is this hood. It's actually from the 1991 Firebird formula, so it's the performance option hood. Now, unfortunately, anybody who's a Pontiac person is going to know this doesn't belong on the car, because no Firebird formula convertibles were made in 1991, but it does look cool. In terms of keeping these things on the road, well, they're F-bodies. Parts are everywhere. And that's one of the great things. You're not going to get stranded in one of these things waiting for parts for weeks on end, because pretty much any corner auto parts store is going to have what you need. And while it doesn't apply to all Firebird convertibles, in this case, this car has a tremendous ownership history. It was sold new, local here in Olympia, right after the dealers showed it off at the Seafair Torchlight Parade, and that owner had it for 2 years. Then a local English teacher, he bought it, and he owned it until 2005 when he went to go get a V6 Accord as his daily driver to replace this. But unbeknownst to him, when he traded it in to the dealer, his wife went and bought it back for him before it was sold to anybody else. So really, this is a two-owner vehicle that came to me. And even though it has 138,000 miles on it, it has been so well taken care of. I mean, if you go and look at any late 80s, early 90s domestic produced convertible, they're usually rusted and disgusting inside, and they smell, and the plastics are all broken. And this one is so well kept. It's just a joy. The question is do you want something that everybody else has, or do you want to stand out in a crowd? Let's face it, this 91 Firebird stands out in a crowd. And yeah, it's a V6, but the V6 is bulletproof. And you're not going to race around it anymore. You're just going to go out and have some serious fun. This is a great one for a car show, or just to take it out and take it even on the longest drive. It's one of the greatest performance bargains in drop tops. I mean, you know what they say, the top goes down, the price goes up. To buy one of these new would have cost you over 20 grand. Now, it'll cost you about half that for a car that's limited edition. That's wild. For Class Winners Collector Vehicles, I'm Car Guy in Chief Sam Barrer, reminding you that just because something doesn't have the biggest engine option doesn't mean that it isn't really even more desirable or more fun and will get you more attention out in the world.